Mayor Giuliani trying to set the record straight on his controversial remarks that President Barack Obama does not love America. In a new Wall Street Journal op-ed, the former New York City mayor writes, quote, "I didn't intend to question President Obama's motives or the content of his heart. My intended focus really was the effect his words and his actions have on the morale of the country and how that effect may damage his performance." Katie Pavlich is a Fox News contributor and news editor at townhall.com. Mary Anne Marsh is a former senior advisor to Secretary John Kerry. Thank you both for joining us.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Mary Anne, the quote we just ran, do you accept it?
Look, whenever you're explaining, you're losing. And Rudy Giuliani's lost any shred of credibility he had left and proved to everybody that his best days are behind him. The only good news in all of this is Giuliani actually exposed most of the Republicans running for president as being no better than he is. And as a result, they're going to meet the same fate that Giuliani did. None of them will ever be president of the United States. And at the top of the list is Scott Walker, who was sitting there when he said this, made these remarks originally, and has yet to distance himself from them.
Katie, he says he was hoping this would start a conversation about American leadership. American leaders, he says, have traditionally had a strong sense of optimism, and that a president's inability or disinclination to emphasize what is right with America can hamstring our success. Do you agree with that?
I absolutely agree, and I just want to address what Mary Anne said real quickly. Rudy Giuliani got us through 9/11. He was in New York when 9/11 happened, so I think to say that his best days are behind him, it really shows a lack of really what his record is. When you compare his record to Barack Obama, I think it's clear who's been a real leader here. President Obama has, since the beginning, taken a blame America approach to the rest of the world, and we're seeing the consequences of that as the rest of the world starts to crumble and as evil takes hold as America shows weakness. And that is a direct result of President Obama refusing to admit that America is exceptional and that we have a role to play in being the good force in the world.
Mary Anne, part of Giuliani's previous comment was that Obama, quote, wasn't brought up the way you were brought up and I was brought up, through love of this country. People said that was racist. Giuliani responded to that, saying that's ridiculous. Quote, Obama was brought up by a white mother, a white grandmother, went to white schools, and most of this he learned from white people. This isn't racism. What do you say to that?
It has to be right up there with one of the most ridiculous things Rudy Giuliani has ever said or done. That statement says everything about Rudy Giuliani. And to Katie's point, sadly, when you look at Rudy Giuliani's entire record, 9/11 was the exception, not the rule, and he's proved it once again with these statements. The fact is, President Obama is an exceptional leader because he represents the best of this country by the mere fact he got elected president of the United States not once but twice. And he took out bin Laden, the very person that Rudy Giuliani, in that event, he hangs his entire career on. He never, ever cites him for that. So the fact here is that Rudy Giuliani and the Republicans continue to try to appeal to the smallest ideological part of this country and will never win the White House as a result. The other point here is, the fact is that all of them don't understand the fact that President Obama uses the very same language that President George W. Bush did every single time. So he points out the best of us so we can be better, and he points out our mistakes so we can be better still.
Katie, response?
Look, you can't paint all Republicans with this. And if we want to talk about criticisms of Barack Obama and his history and his past, President Obama's career was started by people who bombed the Pentagon, okay? And so if that doesn't give you any idea of where the president's coming from on his Blame America First approach, then I'm not sure where to go from there. And let's talk about Hillary Clinton for a second, since we want to paint all the 2016 Republican candidates with this broad brush. Hillary Clinton is the one who has not only questioned President Obama's faith, but also was the one who started the birther movement that Democrats love to go back to when they're criticizing GOP candidates moving forward. So if we want to talk about criticism and history of Barack Obama, let's start with the Democrats who started this back in 2007 as we move forward.
All right, I want to quickly put up a little bit more of what Giuliani said in the Wall Street Journal. Quote, any reluctance to hold up America and its ideals in contrast to the nation's enemies weakens our message. Any reluctance to define accurately the beliefs of our enemies helps them camouflage themselves and confuses our military and intelligence efforts. Yep. Mary Anne?
Rudy Giuliani never lets the facts get in the way of his sad stories. And it really, I have to agree with Josh Earnest and others, it is pitiful and pathetic that Rudy Giuliani is now going to be relegated to the dustbins of history by the way he's conducted himself. It is really sad and tragic.
Katie, last word?
None of that is true.
We can use Rudy Giuliani's example as a way to properly criticize government and the President of the United States. And let's look at the facts here in terms of American leadership not working around the world, because there is none. Al-Qaeda is not on the run, as we've been told. ISIS is continuing their march across the Middle East, and Russia is also taking territory. And we're just standing by because the president would rather act like there's this moral equivalence between the West and the rest of the world, and it doesn't exist. He needs to stand up and do exactly what Rudy Giuliani wrote about in his op-ed and take a page out of his leadership book in terms of how he has conducted himself in the past as a true leader of American exceptionalism.
All right, we have to leave it there. Katie Pavlich, Mary Anne Marsh, thank you both so much for joining us.